Great. Yes, it is such a pleasure to have you, Michael, with here with us today. My name is Isa Tuba. I am the global community coordinator at kweliTV. And it is such a pleasure to have you as a filmmaker with kweliTV and have your film on the platform. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Obviously, just to start, I'd love to have you introduce yourself, where you're from, living wise, where you're based, the type of work that you've done, and how long you've been with Quelly TV.
Thank you, Asa, too. It's thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be able to share some information about myself and our organization. I guess originally, I'm from Philadelphia, North Philadelphia to be exact. I've been in the Maryland area since 1977 when I came to the DC area to attend Howard University. I got my degree in communications there, and then started Solar Motion Players Incorporated in 1984. So we're actually celebrating our 42nd year. It's interesting to be interviewed now as a filmmaker because we recorded our 30th anniversary, and obviously I could not have done it alone. We had several entities. Edward Foskey Media was critical in really helping us put that together. And then kweliTV came about, and I said, "Wow, this would be great to submit this to kweliTV." It's a big production, and the recording quality was great from the start, and so I was glad that kweliTV agreed to air it as a African dance and drum celebration for an African American group that's been around as long as we have in the DMV. So I'm honored to represent that as a filmmaker. I guess you could call me that, amongst other things. But I do want to thank all that participated in making that possible.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I appreciate that you're able to, remind yourself of everyone that's been a part of that journey for you. And, one of the first things I want to honestly talk about is like you founded Soul in Motion Players back in 1984. It's so interesting actually talking to someone so far. I'm a Gen Z, so it's like such an interesting concept. 1980s. Like you've been really in the game for a while. What was happening in your life and at the moment, that you made, for this to for you to realize that this needs to exist.
Yeah. So a good question. What happened for me? I was 4 years out of college. I graduated from Howard. And, my degree is in broadcast management. Howard prepared us to leave Howard and become managers of radio stations and TV stations. And after 3 or 4 years, I just realized, wow, it's going to take a while to get to that level. What can I lean on that I know about and something I can create and create opportunities? And Soul in Motion Players came about. I started doing African dance and drum in Philadelphia in 1969, actually. So as a kid, I was exposed to it, and it came natural for me to even sort of look back on that opportunity and say, hey, I can do that. I've learned what it is to run a theater company and dance company and a drum company. And that's really how it started. I didn't want to sit around and wait for the phone to ring to say, hey, Michael, we have a job for you. I wanted to create those opportunities. And so I was working for the government at the time. I was administrative assistant for a DoD contracting company. And the name Soul Emotion just came to mind. I was looking at my computer and what am I going to do to get from behind this desk? And I was like, Michael, you got to put your soul in motion. And that's how it all came
Wow.
about. Here we are 4 decades later, 4 decades later,
Yeah,
and
it
still.
still reverberates. It literally still goes like I Soul in Motion. I love that name actually. I love that.
Thank you.
Because you started your whole artistic journey like I more like or less like in the late 60s, with what I saw like Arthur Hall, the African American Dance Ensemble. And how did that early grounding in movement and rhythm shape the artist that you were able to become?
Yeah, I have one sister. She's older than me. She's 4 years older than me, and she got involved in the arts. and she dragged me kicking and screaming. I was just a shy kid, following behind her, and she was like, "Oh," she was telling
Aw.
everybody, "Oh, my brother can act. Oh, my brother can play drums." All of this. So she was really sort of promoting me and pushing me out there on the stage. Probably I would not have done it without her. And then she introduced me to the whole Arthur Hall experience. But the other story, the story that's behind that is in Philadelphia at that time. The gang problem was so bad in North Philadelphia that they created the arts, and it was a program called Model Cities in Philadelphia that really provided the arts as a way for young people to stay out of trouble. And through that program, I was able to learn drumming. I always tell the story about our local church, which I grew up in the Episcopal Church. I'm a Catholic now, but I grew up in the Episcopal Church, and there was a drummer who came to the church to teach classes. And I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. So I go over, take the class, and I don't know how this was possible, but he gave everybody a drum. And I had my first conga. So I took it home. I was practicing in the basement. And to make a long story short, the guy never showed back up. I mean, weeks went by and the instructor never showed up. So it was divine intervention. That's how I got my first drum, and I just took it and ran with it.
My goodness, I love that. No, that's really great because I feel, especially the part like when you say like your sister, like you were kicking and screaming. It's so interesting, like seeing, like being like you're shy, like honestly, like I feel like it's so interesting kind of how we start. Like I also used to be very, very shy. When I first came into, I started out in theater too, actually, like in like the more arts space before really going into like film and production. And I feel like that's been usually sometimes like a real connector there for a lot of people. And for you, you've worked obviously across like theater, music, performance, like just for decades now. And like, how did those different art forms speak to you, like, in your creative process?
Yeah, so when we talk about the piece that's on kweliTV, Soul Emotion
Mm-hmm.
30,
Yeah.
when I combine having a degree in communications, broadcasting, my arts experience, my theater experience, I was able to really sort of take all of that and uh, envision bringing 7, 8 art groups in the DC area. One from Atlanta was my niece, who was the director of Encanfo. We brought them in from Atlanta. But to be able to envision and say, hey, send out invites to all these local dance companies that, later I found out that that was just a phenomenon, right? To have all these companies on one stage performing. I think we had something like 100, 150, 160 performers in all. And to make it come across like one gigantic performance. It wasn't like, oh, okay, next up we have, no, it was just one free flowing performance of, performance after performance after performance. And I credit all of that to my ability to communicate, to forge relationships. I love, when I can bring folks together and we can just collaborate. And that's what Soul Emotion 30 really was all about. We were celebrating 3 decades at that time, and being able to bring all these groups together to perform on the same stage and be that vehicle by which we could say, hey, who could do it? Who else could do it? Michael Friend can do it, right? He has relationships with all these directors, all these performers. I don't know if anything like that has been done since. Um, so I'm honored to be able to have that ability to be able to, have a personality where people will, say, hey, it's Michael. Let's get involved and let's do it.
No, absolutely. And like, because I noticed that like Soul in Motion, it received a significant recognition like over the years, since making it. And we were so happy and fortunate to have it. But when you look at those honors, like what do you feel like represents for you like more beyond those awards themselves? And I feel like you kind of went into that a little bit before.
Yeah, I think for me, it's always been about the work. I try
Hmm.
not to get so bogged down in, oh, we didn't win this award. Oh, we didn't win this grant. Oh, that's not my driving. My driving energy is really about getting to the grassroots, getting in front of people,
Yeah.
sharing the culture, sharing the love for us as African Americans, and sharing that with other people, with other ethnicities, with other cultures, and being able to make a difference one person at a time through the arts.
Yeah.
That energizes me. That keeps me going. If I got so bogged down in the awards and all that, I would probably would have lasted 2 years because you just get so burned
Yeah.
out trying to,
Yeah.
So, but if you get, divine intervention, I think probably I'm very connected to that in the sense that I think if this was supposed to be short-lived, probably wouldn't have lasted more than 2, 3 years. I mean, you just beat your head up against the wall, something's not right. But I
Hmm.
haven't, after all these years, I haven't, you know, awakened one morning going, I don't want to do this anymore. You know, I went from playing drums to realizing I was here as a drummer. People say, who are you? What are
Mm.
you? I am a drummer.
Yeah.
I'm an arts person. So you go from learning to realizing that this is who you are. This is your purpose on the planet. And when you make that transition, then it's just about living your life. You're not trying to go after anything anymore. To say this is who I am.
Yeah, like no, exactly. And like I feel like as I'm listening to you, you're like I'm like also like thinking about like the idea of being a filmmaker, but also you're so artistic as well. And I saw like for example, you toured internationally, especially like performing for example in Cameroon. And that could in my opinion, that could be transformative, you know? How did being on that continent, for example, like deepen your understanding of your work and your own roots, you know?
Great question. Go
Yeah.
visiting the continent. I wish every person could do it. All people, right? Because you are different. When I went to Cameroon
Mhm.
in 1989, I've been blessed to have gone twice. I went back to Senegal in 2011, where I was able to take Soul in Motion. But but from that very first time going and you land and you get welcomed by the people there, and it's almost like, wow, this is family I didn't even know I had,
Yeah.
and it makes you just feel so warm. And then the big thing about it is when you come back. When I came back, even to this day, if I go over to the store or I go out to a festival and I see somebody who looks like they're from Africa, and you say, hey, what country are you from? And they say, oh, I'm from Nigeria. Well, they say, oh, you can have a conversation. You say, oh, I
Yeah.
haven't gone to Nigeria, but I've been to Senegal and oh, is that right? Okay, well, where are you from? So, since then I've found out that my DNA takes me back to Sierra Leone. My wife and I both are from Sierra
Mm.
Leone, so
Oh wow.
I married the woman from down the street.
Oh, I love that. That is the sweetest thing ever. Do you mind me asking how long have you guys been married?
This June will be 39 years.
Wow. I love that. I love that. And I love Sierra Leone too.
Yeah.
So I
So
love
the idea that we're
I'm
from.
Guinean by the way. So
Oh, okay.
we're
Yes, yes,
all
yes.
there.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's the root of all our drumming is from Guinea. Our all our influences of dance and drum for soul emotion really kind of emanates from Guinea, and we were blessed to be able to have that influence from Mama Kadiatu, who was part of Soul Emotion 30.
Yes, yes.
She is no longer with us; she's now an ancestor. But she was a big part of that program that's on kweliTV. So people can always go and watch Soul Motion 30 on kweliTV to honor the greatness of Mama Kadiat.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hmm.
No, absolutely. That's really great to hear. And I love that like, I love like kind of having those reminders of where certain like instruments or music in general, like the idea of music and where it's originated from. And I love that you honestly were able to find your partner next door, as you said. But that's beautiful. And I also just switching gears, like I saw also that you've done so many things. Just to say, like I'm like trying to go from A to B. I want to like talk about everything, because you were also
Yes,
percussionist. I feel
yeah.
like I'm saying that right.
Uh-huh.
And you performed for years like with legends like Jerry Butler or Ben E King. And what did playing alongside those artists, like for you, like with their caliber, teach you about discipline or and collaboration, even when it comes to your filmmaking, some
Yeah.
as well.
It was incredible.
Hmm.
I really felt like a protege to these masters, Benny King, Lloyd Price. The Lloyd Price story is an amazing story. He's an ancestor as
Mm,
well now,
mhm.
but his story, when you talk to him, he lived in Africa. He promoted the Muhammad Ali fight. He was the man behind Don King, all these things as an artist.
Yeah.
And when I first started working with him, one of the first big shows I remember doing was in Atlantic City.
Mm,
He wanted to open the show with African drumming and dance,
yeah.
this rock and roll show. And he goes, Michael, can you make that happen? And of course, yeah. So I was able to bring both worlds together, right? From the African drumming into commercial music, rock and roll from the 60s.
Yeah.
And we used a group out of Harlem at that time that came onto the show. And that's how we started the show at the casino in Atlantic City. So for me it was magical because I was able to merge all those influences together
Yeah.
while learning from these masters. There was a show called The Four Kings of Rhythm and Blues, and it was Lloyd Price, Benny King, Jerry Butler, and Gene Chandler, and
Hmm.
they were the Four Kings. And so to travel with them for some like 20 years, every casino in the country, places where you didn't know the casinos existed,
Yeah.
and so I went from playing for the Four Kings of Rhythm and Blues, and then I played for Lloyd Price's band. He had his own band. Benny King had his own band, so I ended up playing for his band as well. So it was just an honor. It was really just an honor and a testimony to say that, no matter how old we get,
Yeah.
we have to be open to continue to learn, want to learn, because if as a learner, you can be a teacher. And so part of the teaching process is always learning. And
Mm-hmm.
that opportunity was incredible just to sit back and listen to Lloyd Price. Lloyd Price was the producer of that whole production. So to listen to his story and to listen to how he climbed up in the business during a time when a lot of artists weren't successful because the publications or the publishing of their work was being taken from him. And Lloyd, at an early age, decided that that wasn't going to happen to him. He was able to maintain his publishing,
Hmm.
and to do that, he had to exile himself to Africa.
Oh, wow.
That's how he ended up in Africa
Okay.
until the dust cleared and he came back. So very,
Came back.
very
Yeah.
interesting story. Yeah.
That is such an interesting story, and I loved like your connection to it. And like because your first theatrical work, We Are Africa, debuted also in 1991. Um, I can't remember if it was before or after. I'm trying to like make sure I understand the timeline. Um, and like, what were you hoping like audiences would feel, or take with them when they experienced it?
Good question. What I was really hoping that audiences would take from that show was that we're all the same,
Yeah.
regardless of the color of our skin, regardless of what football team you cheer for, what church you go to. At that time, Egypt was considered the cradle of civilization. And if you really understood that study, then that means that we all started in this place called Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
And in academia, my kids were young at that time. Even academia was trying to say, well, guess what? Egypt is not part of Africa.
Mm.
Okay, come on. How is that even possible now? So just to diffuse that part of history. But um, that really started by reading a book by Tony Browder, uh,
Oh,
the foremost Egyptologist, from Howard University. I heard him being interviewed on WPFW, and I was so excited. I ran out and got the book, and I read it in a matter of hours. Got inspired, wrote the play, went to the National Association of College Activities conference of college student activity directors, and I was down in the convention during the day, and I was up in my hotel room writing the play at night. So so I was
oh
selling the play while I
wow.
was writing the play, and we toured it for 13 years, which ironically, because 13 is a pretty
Wow.
significant number in the book,
Yeah.
and we just touched so many lives. and it was mostly white students, mostly white schools, which I was okay with because our mantra at the end of the show was, "We are Africa, African American. We have a culture, a history, and a future." And at the end of the show, these white students they followed along through the show, and they were up cheering and shouting that mantra at the end of it because they got it. They got it. Like we're all African American. We
Mm-hmm.
emanate, we start there at the cradle of civilization. So it was exciting. I think we accomplished our mission of really just making differences in the world. Those students
Yeah.
now are probably, adults now, and they're probably politicians, they're teachers, they're lawyers,
Yeah.
whatever they're doing. But they, if you were to probably talk to one of them, they probably would tell you about that experience, and that, I was very honored that, we were able to do that.
Yeah, and especially like you don't even know like what amount of how much you've probably like this one piece of them like in their memories or in that time like was able to probably influence a lot of the things that they probably have thought and going through in their own future and what they're really believing. And I feel like that's really commendable, and I think that's really important to be able to touch, especially another side, people who don't have the black experience but are utilizing your art to like kind of learn about it and give them their own little bit of knowledge to continue using. You honestly, you also, with all the arts that you've worked in, you've served as like a leader and like a board member for several, arts organizations. And I wonder like why has supporting the arts, like that's, behind the scenes, seemed just as important as being on stage, you
Yeah.
know?
So I think for me, it was just really understanding. I wanted to understand, initially, I wanted to understand the process of grant um, applications for small
Mm-hmm.
organizations. I wanted to know what happens when a small organization submits an application for a grant, and what's the process, and why is there so much paperwork and so little reward at the end. At that
Yeah.
time, Montgomery County, Maryland, the arts were being controlled by the Arts Council. The money would come down
Mm-hmm.
from the state to the county, and then the county created the council. And these large organizations didn't have to apply for the money. If you generated enough revenue to be considered a large arts organization, they automatically got tens of thousands of dollars. Didn't have to apply for it. Didn't have to say how they were
Mm-hmm.
going to spend it. On the other hand, small organizations like Soul Motion, oh my God, you have to fill out 50, 60 pieces of paper just to say,
Right.
and to get, $700, $750. So that was really my purpose. So I joined the 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 board for the Arts and Humanities Council in Montgomery County. Teresa Cameron, who was the head of it at that time, said, "Oh, Mike, I want you to become vice president of grants." Okay. So she assigned me as vice president of grants, and one of our goals together was to come up with a process where these large organizations, even though they were going to get the money, they had to fill out an application and say, what are you going to do to make a difference in the community? Tell us
Yeah.
what black shows you're going to do, what Hispanic shows you're going to do, and they had to write it down. And
Mm.
I don't think I created any enemies by doing it, because I think the way we handled the process. In fact, there was a Jewish organization in Bethesda called the Writers Center,
Mm.
and they reached out to us, and we did Black History shows there for several years at the Writers Center. That's a Jewish, arts organization. They were excited about it. We were excited about it. They wanted to promote it. The Jewish people were working with the African American people. So it was a thing.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I think to go after it that way. But then that led to the Black Rock Center for the Arts. That's a whole
Mm.
nother story, but it was part of that whole
Okay.
development up in Germantown. That
Yeah.
was that was just a farm, and then it became this arts organization that's now still existing. From there to Joe's Movement Emporium, where Soul in Motion has been a resident company there for almost 30 years. Sat on that board, and I'm honored to say that they have actually created a wall mural on the side of the
Mm.
building, and there are three Soul in Motion members that are part of that mural, including myself. So Um,
Oh wow. Oh my
so
gosh, that's beautiful. That's so nice. I love just as myself. Humble. So humble.
so you look around and it's funny because we've had our picture in the subway at Bethesda Metro. When you get, if you know,
Hmm.
people take the Bethesda Metro and get off at the Metro, I think it's got the longest escalator in the Metro system and
Oh
at
wow.
the Metro Center. Well, not Metro Center, but Bethesda Metro, I think is what it's called. And at the base of
Hmm.
that escalator is our picture. And it says, the arts are welcome in Bethesda. Bethesda welcomes the arts, or
Love
something
that.
of that nature. And it's been there
Hmm.
for over 10 years. So
Mm.
I used to get people, coming into the office and I've seen you before. And I would say to them, did you take the metro?
Right.
And then they put it together, right? So, you do this for long enough, and I mean, so when you think about that, it's like, wow, once again, that's a huge accolade. If you sit back and think about it, go, wow, okay, we've got this picture in the metro, we got this huge mural on the side of Joe's Moving Emporium, that's in Prince George's County. You know, just you just do what you do and continue
Hmm.
to try to make a difference and not really get so caught up on all those other things. I am honored to say that we have a great uh, repository of videos going all the way back to 1984. And of course, obviously, this was before kweliTV. So,
Yeah.
so when kweliTV came about, I met Deshauna before she started, kweliTV and said, wow, here's an opportunity for us to be able to expose this footage,
Yeah.
worldwide. So once again, it's just always about being prepared, being about documenting and archiving, and time eventually will catch up with you. And so Quayle TV provide that opportunity for us to have a place to
A living.
expose the
Yeah.
world to, Solar Motion 30.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously, like we're so happy to have it. It's such a great film. And it's so interesting because I feel like for you, like you probably have so much archival footage from back then when you started. Like sometimes you even find yourself just like rewatching things. I don't know, like it just says just to be like I don't know, going down memory lane. Like you've just done so much. So especially after all these years of creating, performing, and building community, like what even and also like besides also going down memory lane, like what continues to move you, like what keeps your soul in motion, like like trying to put it in there.
Yeah. No,
I
I
really
think
like that saying.
yeah, I think from the start, I always tell people, when I first started it was me and my peers from Howard. Two or three people I graduated with,
Hmm.
with from fine arts, and we were all peers. We were all in our 20s, and then somewhere in around the 30s or 40s, you start reaching outside of that circle, and you meet new people, and
Hmm.
then in the African tradition, we call our elder men babas, and we call our elder women mamas.
Yeah.
And so at some point, you wake up in the morning, and all of a sudden, people are coming and going, "Oh, thank you, Baba." They go,
Mm.
Baba. Oh, are they talking to me? I'm a Baba?
Oh
Like,
my gosh, this is gonna
because
put
you,
me down, like, because I literally know that. Like, I called my grandparents that, so
yeah.
I love it.
So
And my,
you wake up and you realize that your role has changed. These folks that you are now inspiring that come to work with you are younger. They're not your peers. They're younger generations, and they look up to you for that role of encouragement and leadership and teaching and all that sort of thing. And so you just realize that wow, the work continues. I mean, I've got people in my group now that weren't born in 1984.
mm-hmm.
So, so you want to continue to impart the history and the knowledge to them. And then to answer your question, I I guess I coined a phrase some years ago and I started thinking about legacy and something I call legacy building. So, at what point do we start to say, hey, how do we prepare the next leadership group of Soul in Motion? And I can't take it with me, right? So I've got to try to sort of do that to be able to hand it off. And so it outlives me. and future
Right.
generations. And so as you start to think that way, forward thinking, it really just becomes about the work every day and these different phases of responsibility. Legacy building is another phase of the responsibility. And it's been going on for us for probably about 10, 12, 15 years of just talking about it and finding young people who want to embrace it, at a time where we always want to encourage young people to go out and follow your dreams. And then, so you're asking people to, buy into your vision and say, hey, is there a way you can bring those together? Can you take this and sort of maintain something that we've built already and make it part of your vision? It's a very, I wouldn't say difficult, but it's very intricate as far as trying to, develop future leaders to come in and to, because we have so many visionaries now. You say you're
Yeah.
Gen X, it's all about envisioning, and that's great. So where we have to do the work is with how we continue to maintain those things that we have built and continue to build them, as opposed to all of us just kind of building all these things in different silos and not understanding
Mm-hmm.
how we can really kind of bring them all together
Yeah.
to have the future impact. That's what keeps me going.
That's beautiful. No, that's I love that, to be honest, because that's really the truth, like especially as someone that's so seasoned as yourself, like especially us young people, like we want to hear those stories and we want to be able to like feel like we also can believe in ourselves to continue and push the movement forward. And I think it's great. And I want to also, it's so interesting because as you know, Kweli means truth in Swahili. You know, and you've probably answered this, in some ways already, but I would love to get like, what does truth mean to you? Like, how do you bring authenticity as a creative, not just creator, because you also work in, the performing sense and it as a filmmaker as well.
Yeah. So I think as a creative, it's really about, for me, it's about being true to self. And for a while now, I just people say, Michael, you've been in Africa twice, and you play the
Hmm.
drum, but one thing I understand is that, um, we as African Americans, that mean Africa, understanding Africa is the root. I talked about that, but understanding also that many of us were born here, but we honor the connection to our lineage to Africa. But at the end of the
Hmm.
day, that's what African American means to me. And so
Right.
wherever you're born, if you're born in DC, Philly, Detroit, Chicago, Baltimore, that's part of your that's part of who you are, being true to that. So people look at me and say, Michael, what do you mean when you say you can't be more African than the Africans? We can't beat ourselves up and say, oh, I'm more African than you because I've been there twice. Oh, I'm no,
Yeah.
we can't be more African than the Africans. Africans were
Yeah.
born on the continent. We're born here. And so understanding that and not being fearful to be able to impart that in our presentations. You see what Michael Friend does through Soul Emotion. I'm going to give you some North Philly because that's where I was born, in North Philly. That swag, whatever that is my thing. And so when we are true to that and understand that it's okay, that's what makes us unique. That's what makes us, and not get bogged down and beating ourselves up so much and saying, "Oh, I'm more African than you. You're African." No, you
Yeah.
know what? That's never been my thing. I never got caught
Hmm.
up on it. And if anybody who knows my sister, she's an ex Black Panther. She was involved in all of that. So people go, Mike, she's your sister.
Yes.
Yeah. So we
Hmm.
so we grew up in the same household, and I took Soul Emotion and just kind of ran with it because I really wanted to be able to be the true to self and say, hey, if you come and hear me speak or if you hear me drum or whatever, it's all of those things. Yes, I've been to Africa twice. I'm from North Philly. I went to Howard. I was in deep, I mean, all these things, and that comes out in our pores, who we are. And to be proud of that, to honor that, there's nothing wrong with that, and say, hey, be true to self. And that's really for me, that's my motto, that's my
Your take.
philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And so once again, with quality TV, it makes sense because it's all about truth. Be true to who we are, and honor
Yes.
the lineage and the connection as well.
Exactly. Yes. And I love that because, like, even, for me, it's so interesting when I think about it as you're speaking. I'm like thinking about how when I was in elementary school, like I sometimes used to actually be fearful of saying that I was African because, like, kids used to like make fun of me and stuff. I feel like it's definitely different now. But I couldn't even appreciate like my own lineage at the time because I was so nervous about like showcasing that culture, and like it didn't feel like it had anywhere to belong. And I feel like over the years it's definitely changed. I think that changes especially as you grow older based on the things that you see. And I feel like that's why I love the Soul in Motion. I love the work that you've done because like that can really make a difference for a younger person who is looking at those things and being like, yes, I should be proud of where I'm from and who I am and the lineage that I come from. Because I wish I had that more. Like obviously as I grown, I, realize, oh yeah, no, I love I love me. I love who I am. I love where I come from. But I just love that you were doing this already from the get-go. And it's important. Like it is so important. Like it's such a it's such an important topic that I just think a lot of young people need to see and kind of be able to reverberate through their own like everyday lives. So just want to thank you for that.
Yeah, I was
And
gonna say yes. Soul in Motion. We actually have Soul in Motion 40 in the
ooh,
can. That was 2 years
yes.
ago already. And Soul in Motion 40, where Soul in Motion 40 is different than 30. 30 was all about the dance and the drum.
Mm-hmm.
When we got to 40, I just wanted to make a different statement. This might speak to what you're just asking me about too. I didn't want to come back 10 years later and say, oh, that's all we can do is dance and drum. 40 years.
Yeah.
Because in my 40 years with Soul in Motion and my however many years of just doing this back to 68, 69, Michael Friend is more than just African dance and drum. Because when I started drumming, the djembe drum from West Africa didn't exist in the States. We were
Yeah.
all playing congas from, the Afro-Cuban side. So there was no djembe in the United States until later years. So I wanted our 40 years to really kind of exhibit all the different influences. Just you were talking about Jerry Butler. So our house band for the 40th anniversary was the Earth, Wind and Fire tribute band, who I played with
Mm.
for 3 or 4 years. I wanted them to be the house band, and I had jazz artists, I had comedians, I had spoken word artists. It was just this gamut of what the 40 years looks like.
Yeah.
It wasn't just African. The only African dance and drum thing on that show was us. Everything else was
Mm.
all these other genres. Um, and that represented the 40 years. Interesting result, but it was really kind of what I wanted to speak to in 40 years of existence as opposed to just being that one genre of entertainment.
Yeah.
So we have to get that together and get that to kweliTV as well because it's 10 years,
Yes.
Solar Motion 10 years later.
No, that would be so great. I would love that. I know that Shauna would love that too. To just see the larger landscape, like kind of just how it's grown and like being able to have all those different like areas of focus. It would speak a lot to like a lot of people. So yeah, definitely let us know. Like we want it. Um, but yeah, we would love to know more about like because I know we've been talking more about the arts. And one of the last few question that I have is like just your plans as like a future as a filmmaker, right? Right now. Even as long as well as being in the art space, what your future plans are, and where people could find you. Like kind of we're in like the social age now.
Yeah. So the filmmaking part of that is very interesting. My son, who's also Michael Friend, his middle name is Jabari. We call him Jabari.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he and I got into filmmaking really during COVID, and I brought him in to record a workshop that was conducted by my mentor, who's an ancestor now, Doc Gibbs. And Jabari fell in love with it. He was just like, wow, he fell in love with meeting Doc Gibbs, but the whole idea of being able to do this video recording. And he picked up piece of software called Studio Switcher and was allowing him to do multiple camera shots with just using Apple phones and iPads, and it
Mm.
was, and he fell in love with it. He eventually won a couple of awards through
Wow.
Montgomery Media with some of his stuff, and we were really really effective during COVID because we started to put some stuff together, and even though we couldn't venture out, we had enough footage where we could send to all these different festivals and say, hey, we got footage of this and so the answer to that question is that Jabari, who now just has just turned 30, is sort of
Mm.
our resident in-house archivist. He's really kind of
Oh,
jumped into this whole video thing, and he'll
yeah.
go out with me to shows just to kind of document it and get it. So it's interesting because vicariously I'm living through him as he's embracing this whole video piece about dad. We got to document it. We got to get it in the can. Da, 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 da. And that's great. That's the future right there. I mean, here I
Mm-hmm.
am talking to you all about the filmmaking part, but we in-house through my son. I think once again
I
he
love
will
that.
begin to take that and understand that and watch his dad as we're producing it, but he's understanding how we got to capture it and set a way for that piece of it to outlive the actual work, but to have this stuff in the can. And so I'm excited that he's doing that. I think he's sort of feeling his way through it, and understanding that hey, we got to capture it, we got to get it. I don't, so to transfer it to say, hey, he understands, he knows about kweliTV. When we did the whole 30th anniversary piece, obviously he was a lot younger,
Mm.
but once he found out that we got it on air and all this sort of thing. So I am excited that to know that I believe he's going to be the future filmmaker for Solar Motion to really
Oh,
kind of keep it, percolating.
going. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yep,
That's great. I love that like the creative expression kind of like went from like you to what you were doing and now to him, but it's still his own, which I think is really great. But he kind of like still it feels like he could probably still get inspiration from you and like what you're doing, especially if he's like the archivist of the group. Like that's great. Always capturing. That's like one of the things about like being when you're a camera guy or a DP, like always capturing everything that you see because you really never know what you can make of it.
that's true. That's
And he
very true.
probably got a lot of inspiration from you as like a dad, so that's really nice to see.
Yeah,
And every probably people would want to know where to find you as well, like if there's any websites or your socials or your son's socials.
yeah. So certainly. So we're all over social media. We have a huge presence on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So for folks, if they go to Facebook and type in Soul in Motion African Dance and Drum or Soul in Motion Players, they will find us. Like I said, we have a huge presence there. Instagram as well, or our website. I'm a website developer, so we have an
Oh,
edge on that.
another one,
That's
another
my
check in in the whole list of things that you do. I think it's so great.
so they can find us
You're
on
so
Soul.
multifaceted. Yeah.
So, we own multiple URLs. So, however they put it in, soulinmotion.org. People call us Simp Inc., which is Soul in Motion Players Incorporated. You can find us there. You can find us on just simple soulinmotion.org. So, whatever comes to mind, if you type it in, it's all going to take you to the same place. And on that page, we have, tons of video that will lead them back to YouTube. We have a YouTube channel, some great photos who, our in-house photographers, my brother-in-law, Aaron Davis, who's one of the best um, photographers out there. So once again, got to give shout outs to all these folks who are really just kind of help our impact. Pam Lasseterone is our choreographer, our associate director. She's been with me over almost 30 years now.
Mm.
Also from Philly. And all the folks who just come out to rehearsal every Tuesday. We joke about that, rehearsals every Tuesday. But yeah, so our website is probably the greatest source. If you come to soulinmotion.org, you'll find everything you need, from our calendar to the photography to the videography, all the information. And we're blessed. If you come and look at our schedule, people go, their jaws will drop and go, wow, because yes, we are blessed. We stay very busy. Um,
Love it. Yeah.
our season starts during Martin Luther King Day, and then we go straight
Mm.
through Juneteenth. So yeah,
Wow.
Juneteenth has become more popular in Black History Month, believe it or not. So,
Wow. Okay.
hmm
Yeah, that's great. Oh my gosh,
yes.
I would love to see you guys. Like honestly. Now I'm like thinking about it. I would love to like figure it out. But yeah, thank you so much. Thanks so much
Thank
for
you.
taking the time to like talk with me. And hear about you and your, abundance of experience like in life and the things that you've worked on.
Yeah.
But it's so nice to see people like creatives just like you who are like constantly putting that like work in to constantly bring out that amazing content and um just putting out like the best things about our culture and our diaspora, and those Black stories, whether that's through the music or through theater or through filmmaking. So thank you so much. This has been great talking with Michael today. Obviously you can find him on all of the website that he talked about, and socials. But yeah, this is Isa 2 and this has been kweliTV podcast, so thank you so much.